Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for The Walking Dead Season 9, Episode 13. Wow, so any complaints before this episode about this half season being very slow paced or anything like that has kind of been thrown to the wayside here with this episode. Ton of action in this episode. Of course, the Daryl and Beta was the big thing going into this episode, which we saw in the teasers and the trailers. So if you saw a little bit of that stuff, you knew kind of what to expect or what you were getting in this episode, and that definitely did not disappoint. But outside of that, we had some great scenes. Connie and Henry taking out some whispers as well as they came in there, and then also on the road on the way there, and then we also had a nice confrontation scene with the Kingdom. So this was actually a very action-packed, suspenseful episode, which I believe is one that we haven't had in a while. In terms of, the second half at least. So, yeah, it's been a lot of slow pace, kind of drag out, kind of storylines and actions, and this one was total opposite. So, to me, yes, this is one of my favorite of Season 9. I don't think I would put it ahead of last episode, though. I still like last episode better. Yes, this was action, better action-based entertainment, but I felt like the writing, the story, development-wise, I think last episode was a little bit stronger. But anyways, also worth mentioning that the writer of this one, David Leslie Johnson, I believe, was one of the writers for Aquaman as well, and he's written some of the best Walking Dead episodes of the series. So I think there was something to say going into this episode, seeing that he was the writer for it as well. But anyways, so love to hear your thoughts on this episode, of course. What do you think of the big Beta Daryl showdown? What do you think of all the rest of the episode? Love to hear your guys' thoughts. And if you enjoy this review, please be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Would really appreciate it. So, anyways, without any further ado, let's get into a recap here. We'll go in-depth recap here, talking about everything. And then I'll get to my rating, favorite character, and then some more overall thoughts of the episode. And also what we might see next episode, as it looks to be the Flashback Scars episode. So we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end. So, alright, let's kick this one off with right where we left off, right? So we resume right where we left off. Daryl and the others got away for now, and it's still nighttime. They're in the forest there. They're still reluctant on letting Lydia go with them, or at least Daryl is at this point. Of course, Henry, Connie kind of on their side too, on the kids' side, how they, she's with them and wants Lydia to come with them, right? So then so that happens, right? And then Connie kind of points them in a different direction than the Hilltop would have been, or than Alexandria would have been. And of course, that comes back later. So then we're back at the Whisperer camp here, and Beta calls in for a fighting team to be assembled, led by him, of course, to go after them. As, of course, they realize pretty quickly here that Lydia was taken, and, now she's gone, right? After the big kind of chaos ensued with all the walkers kind of infiltrating the Whisperer camp there, which resulted, I believe it was like 3 or 4 of them that died. They showed in this episode. We got a glimpse of a couple of them. So probably about 3 or 4, maybe up to 10, I would say, kind of perished in that little chaos there, right? So then he says, Lydia will walk with us again, or they will all walk with the Guardians. So, meaning that they will kill them and that they will reanimate as walkers. This also makes the title from last week make a little more sense. Just because, it was named Guardians, and the Whisperers kind of refer to the walkers or zombies, if you will. Zombies never uttered in the show, but the zombies, if you will, they call them Guardians, right? And this is a trend with Walking Dead. Every group usually has a different name for the zombies, for lack of a better term, right? Our survivors is walkers, right? Biters was a big thing, with, who called them biters? The governor, right? The governor called them biters, and, there's always been different, interpretations, and so in this way, the Whisperers call them Guardians, especially also because they are guardians to the Whisperers, right? So that whole plays in there anyways, but, yeah, so I thought that was a nice little line there. I would have liked to see that line in last episode, though, so that it would actually have made sense, but I don't know. I didn't quite get that, but Chokepoint was a good title for this episode too. So, all right. So then we go back to the Kingdom, and I wasn't expecting a lot of Kingdom stuff. I thought this episode would just solely be focused on Daryl and them getting away, but we actually got kind of 2 subplots again, like they've been doing for pretty much every episode since they've gotten back from the mid-season premiere. and basically showing us two different locations and playing out this story, right? One with the Whisperers and one inside one of the communities. So at the kingdom, Jerry and the others come back from clearing walkers off the road. They say they got jumped by a group of people who gave them a letter demanding payment for use of the roads around the kingdom. Otherwise, the people attending the fair will be stopped on their way, basically threatening, right? If people start going towards the kingdom on these roads, we'll stop them, and we'll make it unsafe for them to get there, right? And at the very end of the letter, it says, "We are the highwaymen." And of course, that red symbol is drawn on the letter. So now we know for sure it is not the Whisperer symbol. It is the Highwaymen, which is a new group, not in the comics, by the way. So very interesting thing here, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, with this new group called the Highwaymen and seeing how they integrate into this story going forward. To me, it would have made more sense to bring in a group like this to explain the Scar flashback, but it looks like they're going the other way with that. So anyways, we'll have to see how that all goes. But yeah, so the red symbol there is drawn on the letter. So then Ezekiel tells Jerry to gather every fighter that they can spare to respond to this pirate group. That's what he calls them pirates, right? Trying to steal their money from them, right, in exchange for kind of safe passage, if you will, right? So they call them pirate group. And then Ezekiel says, "It never ends, does it?" to Carol, which contradicts exactly his line from 2 episodes ago after they got the movie, the broadcasting bulb there, right, for the projector. How he said, maybe it'll be peaceful or some along those lines, right? And now totally backwards, right? He says it never ends, right? There's always conflict. I think he said somewhere along the lines like there's always conflict when you're trying to make peace or something like that, which is always true with The Walking Dead, right? Every single time. So then we see Connie leads the group then to a high-rise apartment building in the city, or at least that's what it looked like, kind of at least a housing building. That was obviously still in construction at the time, and that's plays a big part in the rest of the episode. So we also find out that she stayed there before. She stored some supplies there. Of course, the hole in the floor, right? The little trap door over top of that. She was staying there for a little bit, maybe with Yumiko and Magna and the others. I'm not sure if she was maybe just there alone. So then, rather going back to the hilltop, right? She leads them to this high-rise building where they can get the higher ground on the Whisperers, who are basically coming after them, right? Actively coming after them right now. And then she calls it a choke point. So, of course, that is the title of the episode. And like I said, it makes a lot of sense for what kind of goes on here in the episode. So, yeah, Connie's idea to do this. And turns out working good for them, but it really could have backfired. So, Daryl says we go up and we separate the living from the dead, which again is a very big point here, right? Because Daryl says, as the Whisperers won't have any walkers with them up so high, right? Walkers can't climb stairs. Maybe season 1 they could, but this Walking Dead, walkers cannot climb stairs, right? And of course that means that the Whisperers then will be separated, and they won't have that constant problem of figuring out who's the dead ones, who's the humans, right? Because they all look the same and that stuff. So in that sense, it is a really smart idea. But Lydia does warn them of the biggest problem here is that they will be trapped up there with no way down, right? The Whisperers are going to cut them off so that if something happens, they will not be able to get down, right? And then she also says Alpha will send her best, which is Beta. Really awesome. Daryl says, he their best, and she just nods her head. Awesome stuff, right? Setting up foreshadowing here. Daryl says, "Good, we'll kill him first." Okay, Daryl, right? Okay, Daryl. It seems as though he did, but of course we know Beta survives that fall. But anyways, so just a really great thing setting up things, right? So then we see they confront the Highwaymen. So Carol, by the way, I might call them Mountain Men by accident. I don't know. I have that in my head from watching the episode. But anyways, so Carol, Ezekiel, and their squad, about 20 of them, right? All the able-bodied soldiers that they have, or fighters. The squad arrive at the meeting spot for this Highwaymen group to pay the road toll, pretty much, which in their sense means killing them, right? So they don't have to pay it. So Carol argues against killing them right off the bat, as they could have done, right? Because they outnumber them, right? They have all the weapons. They could have easily just killed them before even, letting them know that they were there. And they talk about that, about the archer, right, taking out 2 of them before they even know what happened, right? And says they basically should try talking to them first instead, right? Try talking to them, and if that doesn't go well, then we kill them. So kind of a funny little dialogue there for that. So Ezekiel agrees that they'll talk to them and give it a chance. So as they show up, they enter kind of a room in this kind of abandoned factory, it looked like, and they go into this room full of mannequins. Really awesome little sequence here, and the visual, the way it was filmed too, the cinematography was really great here with the shadows and the mannequin. And then as the leader pops out, right, where all the group is all hiding amongst these mannequins, where the leader kind of comes out of the mannequins, is actually a really well done visual there for sure. So anyways, so he comes out, he's wearing a cowboy hat, so right off the bat, right, sets the kind of mood or kind of tone of this group, that they're kind of Western, horse riding, conqueror kind of guys, right? Kind of old Western. And we've seen a lot of that stuff with this season, right? With horses. I mean, horses have never played a part in The Walking Dead until this season, except for maybe the pilot, right? With Rick. So, anyway, so then as he comes out, he's joined by several men who come out behind him. They have guns, and I think one had a musket or something like that. A couple others have, kind of poles and stuff. So, not really high-tech weapons or anything, but they are weapons nonetheless. So the group threatens Ezekiel and the kingdom to give them whatever they have in exchange, because Ezekiel says he doesn't have, money to give them. He only has, food, and they need that food, and it doesn't seem like the highwaymen care that much. And of course, this reminds us a lot of the Saviors, right? They didn't really care if you survived or not, or you had a good life. They wanted half of your shit, right? That was basically the whole thing. And so this is sounding a lot like that, which is troublesome because they just got out of this, 6 years ago, but they know that they've faced this kind of thing before with another group, right, with the Saviors. So then suddenly an arrow flies in and the tables completely changed, right? The tables, completely turn on the highwaymen as the rest of the Kingdom squad comes in and basically holds knives to all their throats and, basically subdues them, right? Takes their weapons out of their hands and is able to gain control of the situation. So then Carol and Ezekiel propose a deal that the group keeps the roads safe for them, keeps the roads safe for the visitors to the fair, and to not threaten them. And in return, they get granted access to the kingdom and can attend the fair, which will also provide them with trading opportunities, of course, with Alexandria, Hilltop, and the kingdom as well, right? So then the leader thinks that to be ridiculous, right? He says, why would we do that, right? Even though, they're completely, like, the kingdom has them completely under control, right, in that situation, and he still has the balls to kind of say that's ridiculous and fight back against it, when they could easily just wipe them out right there and then. But anyways, so then Carol then asks, when was the last time you saw a movie? That was just awesome. The great Carol charm in there. Really, really great stuff, and of course, we find out that convinces them after all. And it's a huge thing. For us watching, it's like, not a big deal, but if you really put it in the context of it, it really does have a big impact. And that type of stuff would, especially on a group like this that's been on the road and hasn't really been in a community, or at least we don't know yet. For them, that would be huge, huge. So, you know what? It does seem a little bit ridiculous, but if you really get in the context of it, maybe it makes a little bit more sense of why they would take that agreement. And again, remember, like, the kingdom could have just killed them right there and then. So, they really should take any deal that's offered to them, for sure. But anyway, so yeah, really great Carol charm. We haven't seen some of that since like season 6, right? When she was baking cookies for Sam and all that. So it was great. Also found that this was kind of similar to the Atlanta group confrontation with the Vatos gang back in season 1 when they went to get Glenn back. Seemed like a similar thing, right? A kind of a smaller group held up in this kind of abandoned building. And, of course, Rick's group kind of going there to confront them, control shifts, all that stuff. So it really reminded me a lot of that, and it seems as though the writers were kind of playing on that a little bit as well. But anyway, so now we're back to Tara, and the others are on the road. We get, a few Kelly, Yumiko, Magna, and then the two guy, what is their name there? Earl, right? Earl and Tammy Lynn, I believe, or Tammy Lynn. Anyway, so we get a few of them, right? And they're on their way to the fair. So they're on the road, and they suddenly get a bunch of walkers, right? Come out of the forest and start attacking them, kind of out of nowhere. They begin to struggle with them. Earl even falls down, almost gets bitten until Tammy Lynn helps him out a little bit. Anyways, and so then all of a sudden, right, these men ride up on horses and start taking these walkers out for them, right? As it seems like they're struggling. I think that they would have got out of it fine, but of course, some help, is obviously them coming in is obviously helpful for them, right? So then we get the leader says, "We are the highwaymen, and we're here to escort you to the fair." And he says, "At your service." So it was really good, and notice that they were using wrenches. Like this guy was just swinging a wrench to kill these walkers. So again, reminds you that their weapons are not that sophisticated, and their supplies are not that advanced, right? And so then so we get the idea, right? Carol and Ezekiel's deal worked out, and they will now protect the roads. And you know what? This was a nice connection. At first, I'm like, this isn't that big of a deal. But if you do think about it, I mean, the groups going to the fair are probably going to run into some difficulties on the roads, especially given traveling groups that are weaker than even this group was. Which this one, of course, led by Tara. They have some strong fighters. But even groups weaker than them are going to have some struggles. So the highwaymen are definitely going to help out. But yeah, really nice connection there. And it really wrapped up really quick, too, right? The very next scene, we saw that the mountain men were helping them out. So that was great. By the way, Earl and Tammy Lynn, I don't understand that at all. I don't know why they're trying to make them characters that we care about at all, because I don't really care about them at all. I think they're definitely setting up for one of them to be on this kind of pike death at the end of the episode, and honestly, it's not going to have any impact on me, because I truly just do not care about either of them, and this whole baby thing, it just seems kind of ridiculous. It doesn't seem like something that makes me care about them more. But anyways, so then we see Lydia spots the walkers emerging right from the forest nearby. Of course, they're on the balcony looking down, and we see Beta walks among them in the middle. Awesome stuff. He stands out in every shot, right? Because I think that Ryan Hurst is 6'5", 6'7", somewhere in between there. And, of course, even in the context of this apocalyptic world, I mean, that's freaking tall, right? He's a big guy. I mean, he's supposed to be, right? Beta's supposed to be. So, he really stands out. That's awesome. So, suddenly, Daryl shoots the guy who is now a walker, right? But before we saw him, we saw that he got bit in this kind of chaos that ensued, and Beta kind of comforted him. It seemed as though Beta actually cared about him a little bit. Maybe kind of a father-son dynamic there, I'm not sure. But it did seem like Beta actually cared about him. And the way the Whisperers treat the Walkers as guardians, right? So it would obviously be kind of offensive to them to see, their friend as a walker be killed. With the survivors, obviously not as much anymore, because they've kind of adopted a different, way of thinking. But anyways, so of course this gets to Beta and makes him look right up at Daryl at the balcony. And again, so much foreshadowing here. You don't want to piss this guy off, right? Like, Daryl doesn't quite understand it quite yet, and he still doesn't after this episode. But you do not want to piss this guy off, right? So, as the Whisperers enter the building there, Beta tells the group to block both stairwells so that they have no way out, right? Just what Lydia warned them about is coming true, right? The Whisperers right away, right when they get in, they basically establish all the walkers at the two stairways so that they could not get out of this place if something went wrong, right? But the biggest thing, again, is the walkers can't go up the stairs, with them, and of course they're forced to climb up alone up the staircases, which is the big thing about differentiating the dead from the living. Alright, so then we get really the big action of this episode playing out here. This was really great. So, of course, the Whisperers coming up these two, it seems as though there's two staircases, right? So, some of the Whisperers are coming up this one where Henry, Connie, Lydia's in the closet at this point. And then also another one where Daryl is. So, it seems as though there's two kind of staircases. I think there's about 6 to 8 Whisperers, including Beta. And so, of course, they kind of split up, right? So, there's about 3 in one spot, 3 in the other, and then Beta, of course, goes with, the 3 of them to Daryl's staircase. But anyways, so that just gives us a bit of context, right? So first Henry. So he waits at the doors. The two whispers come through. He handles the one pretty easily actually. And then as he jumps out behind a wall, that was really awesome. Kind of setting up the whisper there as they, I believe it was a woman, right? And she starts walking by, and Henry just takes her out real quick. That was great. And then Connie gets the other one as Henry runs, right? The other whisperer had a bow and arrow, and so of course Henry kind of bolts out of the way. Connie is able to slingshot her from behind, and then we see Daryl. This is awesome, right? Excuse me, not the best part, right? Because we have the Beta and Daryl part coming up. But this was awesome, right? So Daryl's focused on the door, right? This door that's right in front of him, right? That leads to the staircase. And he's ready to shoot, right? And then right as the door opens, Beta enters with two whisperers holding a damn door as a shield. This guy is holding a door, like a wooden door, right, as a shield. It was just awesome, right? So of course Daryl's first shot just hits this door and does nothing, and then Beta kind of throws down the door as Daryl realizes like he has no shot right now and retreats back to another section where the kind of sheets are there, and he can kind of hide within them. That was awesome, man. That was one of the best visuals of this one, where Beta walking over the damn door as a shield. That was awesome. Anyways, so then we see Daryl back in the sheets. This was also an awesome visual. He basically watches the unsuspecting whisperer kind of walk up on him through the sheet, right? So we see the shadow of the whisperer through the sheets, and he just takes his axe and just gives him a real blow, and hits him right, I believe, in the chest area or the stomach, and then you just see the blood coming down on the sheet. So you know what, this is the horror that we have come to love with The Walking Dead that we haven't seen in a damn long time. So or at least a little bit, right? Probably since season 7. So that was actually a pretty awesome kill there, right? Damn. So that was pretty cool, where he axes him down. So then we get back to Henry, where Henry gets stabbed by a whisper in the leg. It turns out really ironic, because it turns out to be the exact kind of spear that he modeled for Lydia a little bit before, that she didn't take, and she left there leaning against the wall, and then this whisperer uses it to stab Henry. So kind of an ironic turn of events there. So it looks like he loses focus for a minute actually, but and that's maybe why the whisperer was able to stab him. And so I'm not exactly sure why he lost focus there, but luckily he is saved by Lydia, who gets out of the closet and lets the dog loose on the whisperer, right? And that kind of subdues him, because the whisperer is about to, just stab him, right? Big knife in his hand, and he was about to stab him. And then the dog ends up coming out and tackling the whisperer down. And then we see Connie handles the other whisperer, once and for all, and stabs her right in the back. Again, a really great kill there. I believe she kind of whacked, I think it was a woman whisperer again, and she kind of whacked her over the head, and then when she was down, just stabbed her right in the back. So really gruesome deaths, right? Like really gruesome death. Anyway, so Connie then goes and checks out his wound, and he's bleeding pretty bad. So this isn't just like a little skirmish or whatever. Like this is a stab wound. And so of course we see that it's very serious. Henry says that he's not trying to kill them for Lydia. And then he says, but I had to, or something like that. But I'm wondering then if that's maybe why he lost focus, is because he thought of Lydia for a second and thought maybe that he shouldn't try to kill the Whisperer. So that's an interesting one too. Of course, we see a lot of Henry and Lydia in this one as they kiss again, and that relationship developing. So maybe it's a little too fast, but, I do still like what they're doing with that. But anyway, so that's what it is. He ends up with a wound. Also in this scene, I just want to point out, if you guys noticed, this scene right here where Connie basically slingshots the other Whisperer, right, to kill Henry. And then the Whisperer appears behind her with a knife, right? And it makes a sound of her pulling the knife out of her little, patch or not patch, out of the holder, I guess, right? So she pulls the knife out of the holder, and right as she does that, Connie ducks down and then misses the knife. If you know what I'm talking about. And we got to remember, Connie's deaf. So, like, they really screwed up there, because I watched it back again. There's no shadows or anything there that Connie could have seen. So, they really messed up there with that one. And not to mention, the actress is actually deaf. If I'm not wrong, she's actually deaf. So they would have actually had to tell her to duck down for the scene. So I have no idea why they would write that in there that way. It just really didn't make a lot of sense. But anyways, I hate pointing out the little things because, if you do that, you're going to spend hours looking at the show and analyzing it. But that was kind of a big little thing, right? Obviously she would not be able to hear that knife coming out, and thus probably not, she probably wouldn't have been able to dodge it. But anyways, that's my 2 cents. All right. So back to the good part. So back to Daryl, right? He slices the throat of the last Whisperer, tries to be quiet about it because he knows Beta is still hovering around there trying to find him, right? So then he waits behind the sheets, the suspense is building. Beta's going to be in there. And then we see Beta. So Beta breaks through breaks through the damn wall. Just runs right through the wall. And you hear the footsteps coming right before the wall kind of comes down or breaks, right? Anyway, so he lunges at Daryl, knocking him to the ground. Daryl was kind of getting ready, and, he couldn't handle this, right? So then Beta kind of holds him down and says, "The girl, where is she?" Right? And then Daryl's able to get back up. He grabs his knives to fight back, and Beta pulls out his "let's do this," right? It's a good old one-on-one. They're kind of, not counting the physical size of both of them, but otherwise they're at equal, advantages here. They both got 2 knives, and of course this is the scene that we saw in the trailer, right? This part here. But anyways, Beta easily gets the better of him really, really quick as he knocks him down, and of course Daryl looses both of his knives. Beta pushes him against the table where the saw blade is, and he holds his neck over the blade and basically demands Lydia again, right? So, he could just easily slice Daryl's throat, right, if he pushed him down a little bit more. Daryl's able to push back then on Beta, kind of sending him to the ground. He is able to pull out his pocket knife and stabs Beta in the chest. It kind of looked like the upper chest there, and you're like, oh, he did it, right? But we got to remember, it's his pocket knife, very small knife with Beta, and it barely phases the guy. He just throws him, and then he just takes Daryl and throws him through a wall, but he just throws the knife down on the ground after he's done. So really cool sequence here again, just really showing how, much of a kind of a monster, how much of a grandiose, threat that Beta is to anybody, really, right? Would have been a threat to Negan, right? He would have beat Negan's ass without Negan's bat, right? So then he says, "You and your people are nothing to me. Your world is already dead. All I want is the girl." And again, echoing that the Whisperers don't necessarily want to kill them. They just want Lydia. And again, it's like the survivors keep taking Lydia, and of course they're going to keep running into problems. And that's probably what we'll see in the finale. But anyways, so meanwhile then Daryl pulls back the floor cover, the little trap door, there where he was able to get in there. He was hiding, right? So he gets up from there. Of course, we saw it in the beginning of the episode with Connie. So he gets up from there where he was hiding and just charges at Beta from behind, who thinks, he's looking the other way and doesn't see him. And he's able to push him over the edge of the floor, and he falls all the way down right into the elevator shaft. And it was awesome, right? So he pushes Beta down, and then just for good measure, Daryl spits down there as well. That was awesome, man. Just that spit to end it all off was great. And I'm not sure if that was kind of Norman Reedus that put that in or if that was written in the script, but either way, that was awesome. So, of course, though, not the last you've seen of Beta, but an awesome sequence. To me, I compare this to the Negan and Rick fight that was seen in Season 8, Episode 12, The Key, last year. That episode was amazing action-wise. And that fight scene between Negan and Rick with Lucille on fire, man, that was just an awesome episode. And I would say that this fight was on par, maybe a little bit worse just because of the magnitude of the characters themselves. But otherwise, it was a damn awesome fight, right? So then we see Tara and the others arrive at the kingdom for the fair. They're the first ones there. Carol right away asks about Henry and Daryl, though, and Tara's surprised that they aren't there yet. Right? She says that they're already supposed to be there. And it seems as though she didn't know that Henry escaped and that Daryl and Connie went out looking for him. So that's a big part of this too. And then Carol says, well, where exactly are they? Right? And then we get back to them as they come back together. Daryl tells them that they will head to Alexandria to get Henry stitched up. And once he can walk, they will all go somewhere together, including Lydia. So this show is kind of a a change in Daryl's mindset here with letting Lydia go with them, right? But, I mean, I still get where he's coming from, because it's going to be a constant problem with traveling with her, right? As the Whisperers will not give up. It's Alpha's daughter. They're always going to be trying to find Lydia and get her back, right? And so they take her to one of the communities. They put the entire community in danger, right? Because the Whisperers and, Beta's going to get a new team, and he's just going to come and try to get her again. And so, again, it's posing a great danger to Alexandria, even taking Henry there to get stitched up. So, and also, of course, especially if they take Lydia with them to the fair at the Kingdom, you can probably bet that the Whisperers are going to show up there. A little bit of foreshadowing there for sure. But anyways, so it's obviously going to pose a really big risk going forward nonetheless. But Daryl makes a decision, and of course Henry, Connie are happy with it, and that Lydia will get to go with them now. So then, of course, we end at the very end of the episode here, back in the elevator shaft. Beta comes to, right, all bloodied and injured, looking back up that elevator shaft. And he will be out for vengeance. He will not take this lightly now. Before he was like, you just look for the girl. But now he wants to kill Daryl, I bet, right? This is getting personal, right? So, also, we got to remember, how many Whisperers have they really killed now? I mean, it's insane. Like, the Whisperers kill one of theirs. One. Jesus. I mean, big character for us, but in the grand scheme of things, that's one person. The survivors? What have they killed? Like 20? More, like 30 Whisperers now or something like that? At least 20. 25 maybe, but you got to think of that. So Beta and the Whisperers, they're going to be out for vengeance after this one. Alright, so in terms of my rating for this episode, I'm going to give it a 4.6 out of 5. So again, like I said off the bat, action, entertainment, yes, right? That was great. That was better than last episode. But I feel like the storytelling, the writing, and all that was a little bit better last episode, especially with the whole introduction of the Whisperers and how they handled that. I thought it was really great. So, of course, a lot of great action in this one. Beta versus Daryl, one of the top 5 fights in The Walking Dead history. I think that's safe to say. The Negan and Rick one in the key may go down as the best one. Governor and Rick is also good and Too Far Gone, but we got to keep in mind that Michonne was the one who actually killed the Governor in the end. And he really was getting a better Rick there until that point. Some of the other ones, I'm trying to think. Gareth and Rick, but it really wasn't a fight, right? So yeah, I mean, there's been some really good fights. Shane and Rick, of course, in 18 Miles Out. That one maybe actually be number 1, but anyways. So then, of course, in this episode, the fair coming together, Tara and them are the first to arrive, and so, of course, that'll play out in the next 2 episodes after this next one, which will be a flashback episode. I'm thinking the whole thing will be a flashback, hopefully explaining the scars, and the episode's called Scars, so hopefully we'll get an explanation about that, and that will be pretty good. I'm really looking forward to it, because this has been a mystery ever since, the beginning of season 9, the beginning of this flashback. It's been a mystery, and they've hinted at it again and again, so I'm really looking forward to the next episode for that. Lastly, Highwaymen. Interesting group. I've seen that comic book readers are not too happy with them. I'm okay with them right now, but we'll see what direction they take them in. It does seem a little bit strange to have a group like that around, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. With them, I think it's too early to judge right now on that group and how well the development for them has been. So, favorite character for this one, I gotta go with Beta, Ryan Hurst. He was awesome. He was awesome in this episode. Of course, a focal point and a big kind of opponent for Daryl now in this episode. Who Daryl is kind of our main protagonist, right, at this point, taking Rick's role. It was just awesome, man. Beta's awesome. Gonna be a huge threat to the survivors going forward. Of course, he's still alive. He survives the fall in the elevator shaft there. And like I said, Ryan Hurst, I think, is the perfect casting for Beta. I don't think you could have got a better guy to do it. And his voice, too, even the voice he does is awesome. So, anyways, I love Beta. Just even in the couple episodes that we've seen him in now, he's really damn awesome. So one of my new favorite characters of the show. I gotta be honest. But anyways, guys, so thank you so much for watching this review. Thank you so much for the recent support on the channel and these Walking Dead reviews. I really do appreciate it. So really looking forward to next week's episode, the flashback episode, and hopefully we'll get some answers as to these scars. I still think Oceanside's involved. There's gotta be a reason why we haven't seen them yet. But anyways, guys, again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you then next week for the Walking Dead Season 9, Episode 14, Scars.